My name is Heather Marshall-Heyman, and I work with internationalisation at Swelife. I would like to welcome you to this short film on Step 1 of the EIC Accelerator, or the short proposal. In this film, we will go through what you need to submit, how Step 1 is evaluated, and what the evaluators look for in terms of innovation, market potential, teams and risks. The goal is to help you shape your application, your pitch deck and video so they will align with the evaluation criteria to help you prepare a strong proposal. Step 1 is the short proposal. You will submit a 12-page application form, a pitch deck of up to 10 slides, and a 3-minute film with up to 3 team members. 4 remote experts review this package and judge it on 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and finally the level of risk, implementation and need for EU support. The evaluators will give your proposal a go or a no-go recommendation based on their assessment of these 3 criteria. Short proposals can be submitted at any time, but they're evaluated in monthly batches. All proposals submitted before the first Tuesday of the month enter the same batch. Each proposal is then assessed by 4 remote experts. Each expert gives a go or a no-go. To pass Step 1 and be invited to submit a full proposal, you need at least 3 go votes. You will normally get the result of your application and an evaluation summary report within 4 to 6 weeks after the monthly collection time. The 12-page application form is the main part of the Step 1 assessment. It covers your innovation and technology, the market and business model, the team and your implementation approach, project risks, and the amount of funding you plan to request. The pitch deck lets you visualize your technology, market, and traction. It must be 10 slides at the most. What you include in these slides is your choice, but it's basically an investor-style pitch turned into the EU criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. The video presents the key team members and the project in a concise way. All 3 elements are evaluated together and must tell a consistent story. A practical approach is to structure your 12-page form so that it clearly answers the key questions under excellence, impact, and risk and implementation need. We will now go through the form in more detail, highlighting any important parts to consider. In the first section, you will describe your technology under a number of predefined headings. First is the novelty and breakthrough nature of your innovation. The EIC is looking to fund deep tech innovations from cutting-edge science and technology. You will need to convince the reader that your technology is novel, and you'll also have to convince them how it's better than current solutions. And you'll also need to provide measurable data that demonstrate its novelty and its potential to disrupt current markets. Then, show clearly how your technology has completed all aspects of TRL 5 with evidence of its validation. Then, explain what intellectual property you have and your IP strategy. You should describe your IP strategy in terms of patents, granted or pending, trade secrets, and other IP elements, and give a freedom to operate status. Next, you will describe the market being addressed. How big is the total market for your innovation? What is a realistic share of this market that you can gain? You will need to describe your go-to-market and commercial strategy and how you will scale up your innovation. Describe any partnerships. And then, who your customers are and your customer value proposition. Why will they want your solution? Now, you will describe your team. Do they have the skills and competence needed to develop the innovation and scale your company? Are there any gaps? How is the gender balance? What is your plan to fill these gaps? Then, describe how the company is governed and how decisions are made and by whom. Under the heading of risk level of the investment, mention any early traction with investors. The EU is looking for companies with interest from the market. So have some investors in place and that would be very positive. Then give details of the timing and size of your future financing rounds or round. You will also need to explain convincingly why you need EIC funding and why investors will not commit to investing enough for you to be able to reach the market. Now to the 10-slide deck. There's no formal requirement or template for this deck, and you are free to include what you want in it. Make it attractive to look at, and make the content clear and appealing. We want the evaluators to be excited and intrigued about your solution. As a guideline, you could use a slide deck like this one, where the slides explain who you are, what you do, and how big your solution could be. You show the need for your solution, what the problem is, and why current solutions aren't good enough. Then, go on to present your solution, a few bullet points on how it solves the problem, and a visual of the workflow. Describe what is innovative and unique, including IP, and state your current TRL and expected TRL at the end of the project. Then, show the evaluators that the technology works in a relevant environment with real-world evidence, and then introduce your target market. Show that you understand where you fit into this market. What's the market size? What are the drivers? Who are your competitors? Describe how you plan to make money. Do you have any current traction? Describe your team, your advisors, board, and your strategic partners. For your last slide, you could present your investment case and the need for EIC grant and equity. Why is it too risky for private investors alone? And will the EIC funds unlock new investments? And finally, a closing line on the impact for Europe of your solution. For EIC evaluators in the health area, the 3-minute video should, in plain language, show who you are and what you do. Describe your company, your country, the disease, the clinical area, your value proposition. What TRL have you reached? Any pilots done? Do you have any clinical data or real-world evidence? You could then describe the clinical or societal problem or solution. What is the problem? Whose problem is it? What's your solution? Is it a device, a software, a diagnostic or a therapy, or a platform technology? What is technically and maybe clinically new and better about your solution? What evidence do you have, and what's the potential impact of your solution? What key validation results do you have? Who are the customers and users, and what is the size and type of opportunity, and the health impact? Now about your team and why the EIC. Who's leading the tech, the clinical, regulatory, the commercial? What will you do in the next 2 to 3 years with the EIC funding? Why is the project too risky or too capital intensive for normal funding alone right now? Make sure your TRL, your market size, and funding request are easy to find and consistent between the form, the pitch deck, and the video. Evaluators check for contradictions. In the next few slides, we will take a look at what the evaluators are looking for in a proposal, under the 3 criteria of excellence, impact, and risk and implementation, and how you can address these in your application. For excellence, evaluators look for 4 main things in the short proposal: a clear problem with a solution, precisely what problem you address, and what your solution is, the novelty and breakthrough of your nature of your innovation compared to existing or alternative solutions, evidence that your innovation has completed all aspects of TRL 5 and is at TRL 6 or higher, and has been validated in a relevant environment. An initial view of your IP protection and strategy, patents, trade secrets, or other mechanisms, and a basic awareness of freedom to operate. So for the excellence-related parts of the form, open with a short, precise description of the problem and your solution, as if addressing a technically literate investor. Explicitly state your current TRL, how you measured it, and what you will reach at the end of the project. Identify current alternatives and explain where you are better in terms of performance, cost, usability, or safety. Do not say you have no competitors. Briefly describe your IP position, patents filed or granted, etc., and how you plan to strengthen it. Bear in mind that evaluators cannot assume missing information, so information should be clearly stated and not implied. For impact, experts want to see that there is a real market opportunity and a plausible path to scale. They will need to see a concrete description of who will pay for your solution and for which use case. They want to see the size of the total market and your realistic potential share of that market, and a simple but coherent business and revenue model. Do you have any traction or validation, pilots, letters of intent, paying customers, users, or partners? A first indication of how your innovation contributes to EU-level impact is also required. This could be competitiveness, environmental, digital transformation, or strategic autonomy. As you write the impact-related parts, make sure you anchor the narrative in specific use cases, your typical customers, how they use the solution, and why they will buy it. Use simple calculations to estimate market size and show that it's significant. Explain your revenue logic. How will you earn money? At what price level? And with what sales profile? Include real numbers wherever possible. And don't forget to connect to EU priorities like critical raw materials, climate adaptation, health, but only where the link is real and supported by your solution. For the level of risk, implementation, and need for union support, the experts will assess whether your team has the right mix of technical and business skills to move the innovation forward, whether the roles and responsibilities are clearly described, whether you identify the main technical, market, financial, and regulatory risks in a concrete way, and whether the funding needed is higher than the market can finance alone, which justifies the need for the EIC support. Also, in your answers, write about the team as a key asset in a few lines. Show relevant experience for each lead person and how they share the work. If some key skills are still missing, say so and explain how you will address these gaps with new hires, advisors, or maybe partners. Pick the main 3 to 5 risks and explain both the likelihood and the impact, plus specific measures you would take to mitigate them. Justify why EU capital is needed. For example, you have a long time to market or a high technical risk that makes this hard to finance by private investors alone. If you receive a go, you can submit a full proposal at one of the 6 cut-off dates. If you receive a no-go, you will get feedback that will hopefully help in a resubmission. And that brings us to the end of this overview of the short proposal. You've seen what the 3 components are, how experts review them, and how to think about excellence, impact, and implementation at this stage. In the next film, we will move on to step 2, the full proposal, and look at how to build a complete case for funding.